nowadays you got to have that because people nowadays.
Before we get straight into the podcast, I just want to give a huge shout out to our sponsors, Declan Kirby GAA Star. Declan Kirby GAA Star Championship Journey. It's a series of GAA team children's books written by primary school teacher and GAA coach Michael Egan. You can check it out in the link in the description down below, of course, as well. Follow the trials and tribulations of Declan Kirby and his team at Smithgreen Gaelic Football Club, recently formed but promising GAA team. The book is now available in Easons and all good bookshops, so check it out in the description down below, and let's get straight into it. What's the story, everyone? Welcome back to GAA Fan TV. I hope you're all keeping well. My name is Aaron and this is the 2021 GAA Fan TV All Star Hurling Team of the season. I'll be creating my best 15 from the All Ireland Senior Hurling Championship that took place this year. Limerick running out winners in the end, but all in all a very entertaining championship, a very good All Ireland Senior Hurling Championship, a lot of action, a lot of brilliant games, and certainly a very hard team to make. I'm not going to lie, there was a lot of very good players, a lot of great players missed out, and trying to create the All Stars this year for the GAA, themselves, that's going to be very tough because there've been a lot of very good hurlers this year. And even trying to choose hurler of the year as well. You could make a case really for a lot of the players in this team and probably that actually get the All-Stars as well. So it's going to be an interesting one, no doubt about it. And if you are new around here, if you could leave a like and subscribe. If you do enjoy this content, if you enjoy hurling, football, ladies football, camogie, this is definitely the channel for you. And there'll certainly be a number of interviews, podcasts coming with hurlers, footballers, you name it, all across the next coming weeks, as well as covering the club action in the All-Ireland Senior Club Hurling and Football Championships as well from across the country. So do stay tuned for them. And without further ado, let's get straight into it. So I suppose we'll start off with the goalkeeper, and there were certainly a couple of choices in goal in between the sticks. Owen Murphy was very impressive for Kilkenny this year, made a number of brilliant saves in the Cork game before Jack O'Connor eventually broke through. And I thought Pat Collins was brilliant up until the final, brilliant off his own puckouts. Cork won 80% of their own puckouts against Kilkenny, and he was fantastic at picking out whether it be Niall O'Leary or Sean O'Donoghue over on the wings. Those two were brilliant. Pat Collins made a number of big saves as well. You remember the Tony Kelly save against Clare, right going down the line. If that goes in, Cork would have been beaten and knocked out of the championship without even winning a game. So it's quite incredible how, that save almost turned their season and they managed to go on to an All-Ireland final. But I have gone with Nikki Quay. Look, listen, Nikki Quay has been the best goalkeeper in hurling for a couple of years now, really, ever since he made that big save back in 2018 from Pat Horgan, I believe it was, if you remember that, late on in the 2018 game. And he's really just kicked on from there. He's made big saves against Waterford. He made a number of big saves in the semi-final. He was tremendous when Waterford were going for goals and trying to turn the tide. He was making big saves, made some big saves against Cork as well. His delivery's usually been fantastic as well. And he just does things right. He keeps it simple. He keeps it easy. And I think he gets in there. I think he's been brilliant for Limerick, building from the back as well. So no doubt about it for me, Nikki Quay gets in as the goalkeeper. We move into the full-back line, and in at number 2 we've Sean Finn of Limerick. And I suppose we'll say this first of all, this team is going to be heavily dominated by Limerick because, well, they won the All-Ireland pretty comfortably. They didn't really have any problems. They were 10 points down against Tipperary in the Munster final at half-time. That was really the only time they looked in trouble, and then they came out in the second half and completely blitzed Tipperary and just completely ran them over. And ever since then, they really haven't looked back. So Sean Finn gets in at cornerback. I think he's been brilliant for Limerick so far. Got a couple of points along the way as well. Brilliant defensively. I think Limerick have been unbelievable defensively this year as well. And you'll remember in the Cork game when Cork were, floating a lot of long balls into the likes of Pat Horgan and trying to get Jack O'Connor in the game as well. Sean Finn, Dan Morrissey were both absolutely tremendous at nullifying Cork's attack. So he gets in at 2. I suppose some honourable mentions are players who could have gone in here. Tommy Walsh was one of Kilkenny. Very bright and young player coming through the ranks of Kilkenny at the moment, and obviously a famous name when you think of Tommy Walsh of old, of course, but this is a different Tommy Walsh of Tullaroan, and he was very impressive, very bright, and could have got in here. Sean O'Donoghue was another one, although he played a 4. Niall O'Leary, well, we will get onto him in a moment. He did make it into the team, in my opinion. But Sean O'Donoghue was very impressive for Cork as well. But as we very well remember from the All-Ireland final, Cork's defence, very poor, very loose marking, couldn't get tight enough on a lot of the Limerick lads. So that's why Sean Finn gets in for me at number 2. We move into the full-back position, and we've got Dan Morrissey, and this is unanimous for me. Dan Morrissey, Arguably my pick for hurler of the year as well. I thought he's been absolutely tremendous for Limerick. You remember the block on the line against Waterford. Lots of big blocks, big moments. Obviously going up against Pat Horgan in the All-Ireland final. Won so much ball ahead of him. I thought he was tremendous. So I think Dan Morrissey has to get in there. I think, he's got a couple of points as well at getting forward. He's done what he's needed to. Spotting men in front of him, the short hand pass and the flicks off the wrist. I think Dan Morrissey definitely gets in there. There's no two ways about it. There were some, players that maybe could have crept in here. I mean, Hugh Lawler was impressive enough for Kilkenny. Thought he'd a decent enough season. Was brilliant against the Dubs in the Leinster final. Was very impressive against Wexford as well. Rob Downey was another player that maybe could have got in contention, but like what we said before, I mean, we do have to look at the longevity of the season, and we can't just judge Cork off that All-Ireland final appearance, because I think other than that All-Ireland final appearance, they were relatively decent enough defensively. I mean, they had a couple of issues here or there, but I think Rob Downey was brilliant for Cork. He just struggled massively in the final. No doubt about it. Conor Prunty of Waterford I thought was impressive as well. When he came back into the side, I thought he'd done reasonably well against Tip. Obviously Shane McCallan scored that goal over him, caught the ball over his head early on in the game, but I think after that he adjusted brilliantly, and I thought he was very impressive and could have arguably got in there, but I don't think you can look past Dan Morrissey, so he gets in at number 3. And number 4, like I was saying before, I've gone with Niall O'Leary of Cork. Now the only other option really here could have been Barry Nash of Limerick. Did I want to put a full back 7 or whatever, of Limerick players? I mean, I do think a Cork player needs to get in here somewhere, and I think Niall O'Leary gets in there because I think he has been the most impressive of Cork's defenders in my opinion. Obviously Tim O'Mahony brilliant at number 5, but obviously that's a different position. But in terms of the full back line, I think Niall O'Leary's been very impressive. Did score in the final as well, scored a point. Very impressive against Dublin as well at getting forward and just adding that extra threat and that extra bit going forward. Like what I said before, struggled a bit in the final. Like much of Cork's defence, they just couldn't get a hold on Limerick's forwards whatsoever, and it was very hard for Niall O'Leary to do much in that game, with the fact that the rest of Cork's defence was very much crumbling in that game. And it was just like, as what the manager Kieran Kingston, Cork senior hurling manager Kieran Kingston said, it was like trying to stop a tide with a bucket, or death tide with a bucket. I mean, it was impossible stuff really. But I think all in all he was very impressive. Against Kilkenny he was tremendous as well, done a brilliant job in that game as well, no doubt about it. Going up against, I think it was who was he marking that day? Was Alan Murphy, or it might have been Owen Cody actually, who did have a decent game to be fair. But I think Niall O'Leary's been very impressive for Cork this year. He was very impressive, and he gets in there for me. We move into the full back line, and definitely a lot of options in at number 5. I mean, you could have went with Calum Lyons of Waterford, who was very impressive this year. Probably not as impressive this year as last year, and I still can't believe he was snubbed of an All-Star last year. I thought he was nailed on to get an All-Star last year, but I don't think he gets in this time around. There is another player ahead of him. But in terms of other honourable mentions, James Maher was brilliant with Kilkenny. Tim O'Mahony of Cork was very impressive as well. Aidan McCarthy even of Clare, although you could put him at the 7 as well and even throw him in in and around the forwards. But I think Aidan McCarthy was impressive for Clare, and even Dara Gray of Dublin had a very impressive season. I thought he was very brilliant in Dublin's win over Galway. But you can't look past Diarmaid Byrnes. I mean, what a season he's had, what a player he is. Again, another outside contender for hurler of the year. I mean, just looking through what he scored from that position: 2 points against Cork in the final, 3 points against Waterford, and 4 points against Tip in the Munster final. Probably didn't score as much as the likes of Calum Lyons and Tim O'Mahony, but I think Diarmaid Byrnes, it wasn't just his attacking output, his defensive output absolutely brilliant as well. Moving forward into the midfield, running beyond, creating extra space for some of the other Limerick players. Phenomenal stuff really for Diarmaid Byrnes. You can't look past him. He gets in at number 5. Number 6, there certainly were some options. Mark Holman was impressive enough for Cork, but struggled in the final. John Conlon of Clare, I actually think, was a good outside shout. Thought he was very impressive in the opening game against Waterford, and obviously not a natural centre-back, no doubt about it. But I do think he had a very impressive season for Clare, and he was certainly under contention. But I have gone with Declan Hannon of Limerick. It is another Limerick player, and like what I said before, you can expect a lot of Limerick lads to get into this team because of the way that they won the All-Ireland this year. And he scored 2 points in the final, one of the best players on the pitch in the final. I mean, one of many best players on the pitch for Limerick that day. Tremendous leader, the captain, the heartbeat of that Limerick side. And what a phenomenal year he's had as well. You know, if you think back to the Tipperary game, he struggled at all in the first half. Tipperary were attacking Limerick with wave after wave of attack. But in the second half, he was brilliant at just settling things down. And as the captain, you know, he was the leader in that game and for much of Limerick's season and really for the past couple of years of this Limerick side. So I think he gets in there, no doubt about it for me, in at number 6. A phenomenal player. And one of the many reasons for Limerick's success over the past couple of years. Number 7 was Kyle Hayes, and I think Kyle Hayes, what a year he's had for Limerick. What a phenomenal talent he is. 2 goals in the championship this year. Actually didn't score a point, funnily enough. When I was looking back, I was actually quite surprised to see that he actually didn't score a point at all in the championship. Got a goal against Cork in the opening day in the Munster Championship, and then got another fantastic goal against Tipperary. Both goals absolutely brilliant. Both goals he was getting forward, he was beating players, and then hitting it into, you know, the left or right hand corner on both occasions for each goal. So tremendous from Kyle Hayes, and quietish maybe in the final and in the semi-final, but again, it wasn't just his attacking output, it was that, you know, support play for the other midfielders, picking out the right players as well, being unselfish when he needed to. You know, he wasn't shooting from ridiculous angles. He was looking for the players ahead of him, whether it be Peter Casey or Aaron Gillan or even Gerard Hegarty at different stages as well. So I think Kyle Hayes gets in there. I thought he was tremendous for Limerick. I don't think there can be any two ways about it. So he gets in at number 7. Some other contenders, I suppose, worth mentioning for the 7th position, actually, before we move on. I mean, Ger Millerick of Cork was an option, and Owen Cadigan, actually, of Cork as well, were probably 2 players within contention. But I think Kyle Hayes unanimously, in my opinion, gets in there at number 7. The midfield, we Jamie Barron of Waterford and William O'Donoghue of Limerick. There certainly were some other options here as well. I mean, Tony Kelly, I'm sure, will get shouted about, and certainly a player worth mentioning. And I actually don't have Tony Kelly in my team, which might be a big surprise to most people. But although Tony Kelly had a wonderful year for Clare, no doubt about it, he was tremendous in the league, and he was tremendous in the championship. Unbelievable against Cork in that game. Nearly won the game, you know, late on. Obviously, Pat Collins made that save. And he had a lot of tremendous, brilliant moments as well for Clare, no doubt about it. When they beat Waterford earlier in the championship, let's not forget that one as well. But I do think that there's just been players that have been better than him, and I think, you know, considering that Clare were knocked out in the second round of the qualifiers, I just can't quite justify putting him in the team this year, in my opinion. It's a little bit unfortunate for his sake. He is one of the best hurlers in the country, probably arguably the best hurler in the country. But I just think in the context of the season, I think there's been a lot of players that have just been a little bit better than him, considering they probably had more games and have been involved with counties that have got to either the final or won the All-Ireland in Limerick's case. So he was a player worth mentioning. Dara Donovan was another player under consideration for Limerick, was very impressive this year and probably a little bit unlucky. Probably one of the most unluckiest players to lose out, but you can only put 2 midfielders in there, and, you know, William O'Donoghue gets in there without a doubt. Just tremendous at winning balls from opposition puckouts, getting those blocks in as well. That support play, you know, passing over the shoulder, running off the shoulder, brilliant play from him. And Jamie Barron, I mean, when he came back from injury, he was absolutely brilliant as well. I mean, just really carrying that Waterford side as well. And when you look at how much Waterford improved since he came back into the side, like came off the bench against Laois, was critical in them getting over the line. Brilliant against Galway as well, hit some beautiful points that day, and the same against Tipperary. So I just don't think you can look past Jamie Barron. I think if Waterford had beaten Limerick if Waterford had beaten Limerick and maybe went on to win the All-Ireland, I think Jamie Barron would have been hurler of the year, in my opinion. I think he was brilliant for Waterford this year, so I don't think you can look past him. Richie Reed was maybe another option of Kilkenny, and Dara Fitzgibbon I suppose deserves an honourable mention of Cork, but just don't think you can look past that midfield pair. And I think they were both tremendous and brilliant, and William O'Donoghue and Jamie Barron, and I suppose Dara O'Donovan just a little bit unlucky to lose out, but those midfielders unanimously, well, I suppose not unanimously because Dara O'Donovan was really under consideration, but I have gone with a midfield pairing of Jamie Barron and William O'Donoghue. We move into the half-forward line, and in a 10 we actually have Austin Gleason. Now, Austin Gleason played the majority of his season really at 14. He played there in the final, or not in the final I should say, in the semi-final and in the previous win over Tipperary. But he has dropped in around midfield at different stages and played in the half-forward line, so I think Austin Gleason gets in here, in my opinion. And just looking through what he scored in his championship season again, and even though Waterford were beaten in the All Ireland semi-final, still a potential outside contender for hurler of the year. And I suppose I was just saying, if Waterford had gotten past Limerick, Jamie Barron maybe would have went on to win hurler of the year. I think Austin Gleason probably has something to say about that, in my opinion, as well. So yeah, he scored 4 points against Limerick in that semi-final, 1-3 against Tip, 3 against Galway, 2 against Laois, and 5 points against Clare. Just tremendous for Waterford, really carrying that team at different stages. And it was hard for him to get involved in the game against Limerick. Like, Limerick done a phenomenal job. Dan Morrissey was tremendous that day, and Austin Gleason had a couple of goal chances, and just on another day maybe they would have went in, but they didn't go in on this particular occasion. So I think he gets in. He's been a tremendous leader for this Waterford side down the years, and I don't think there can be any two ways about it. So Austin Gleason gets in for me at number 10. Some other players worth mentioning in this position: Adrian Mullen, definitely of Kilkenny, was impressive. He scored 1-3 against Cork in that semi-final. Patrick Purcell, actually, of Laois, I thought was very impressive for Laois this year in their win over Antrim, if we remember. I thought he was very impressive that day, and he was also very good actually against Waterford. Even when they lost, he scored 1-4 that day. So Patrick Purcell definitely deserves a mention. Jack Fagan of Waterford, Gearóid Hegarty of Limerick. Gearóid Hegarty scored 2-2 in the final, and certainly was a player worth considering. But I do think when you look at the longevity of the season, I think there's other players, in my opinion, that get in there instead. And Jason Ford of Tipperary probably deserves a mention as well. He's been fairly impressive, and was fairly impressive actually in the Limerick game as well. And even when they got beat against Waterford, I thought he was alright. So he gets in there. But like what I said, Austin Gleason, there's just no doubt about it, in my opinion. The half forward line in at number 11, there can't be any doubt about it. It is Cian Lynch. I mean, what else can you say about Cian Lynch? The wizard of hurling, the Gandalf the Grey of hurling, as I've seen someone say on Twitter. I mean, what a player, what an unbelievable figure for Limerick over the past couple of years. And just looking through what he scored in the championship: 6 points against Cork, 3 against Waterford, 1 against Tip, and 3 against Cork in that Munster Championship game. And it isn't just about his points. I mean, again, it's the running off the shoulder, it's the flicks, it's the movement on the ball. Such a hard player to dispossess as well. Like, when he gets the ball, like, something's going to happen. Either he's going to create a chance for Gearóid Hegarty or Peter Casey, Shamie Flanagan, the players around him, or he's going to take a point. Maybe he's going to go for goal. Like, he's always involved, and he's always a part of everything that Limerick do right. And again, I think he probably is the front runner for hurler of the year at the moment. I do think he is the favourite, and I think if he wins it, I don't think he can deny it. Would he be my hurler of the year? I mean, I feel like Dan Morrissey really does deserve a massive shout. I think Limerick have been so good defensively, but again, you could look back to that first half of the Tipperary game, and you could say he kind of struggled a little bit in that first half, considering how well Tipperary done. But yeah, I suppose Cian Lynch probably is the favourable mention right now. But he definitely gets in the team, there's no doubt about it. In terms of some other players maybe who could have crept into the 11 position, I mean, Jack Prendergast was decent for Waterford. He was good against Galway. Seamus Harnedy, John Donnelly of Kilkenny was impressive as well. I thought he was very good actually against the Dubs in that Leinster final. But again, you just can't look past Cian Lynch. At number 12, there were certainly some options here. Robbie O'Flynn was one player I thought of Cork. I thought he was very good this year, was very good against Dublin, I thought, in that game. Billy Ryan of Kilkenny, another player worth mentioning. Stephen Bennett of Waterford, and even Dan McCormick of Tipperary, maybe with an outside shout. But Tom Morrissey, you can't look past him as well. Again, another Limerick player, surprise, but very similar fashion to Cian Lynch as well. I mean, just a part of almost everything that Limerick done right. 3 points against Cork, 4 against Waterford, 6 against Tipperary. Very clinical in front of goal as well, and just brilliant decision making, I thought, in front of goal. Like, he wasn't rushing his chances, he wasn't rushing his shots. He was waiting for the right options, and just brilliant at just kind of keeping the scoreboard ticking over without even realising. And whilst everyone is probably fixated on stopping Cian Lynch or Gearóid Hegarty or Shamie Flanagan or Aaron Gillan, you've then got Tom Morrissey who's popping up in the background with a couple of cheeky points here and there. So I think Tom Morrissey gets in there, and again, maybe another outside bet for hurler of the year. Do think Cian Lynch and Dan Morrissey and a few of the other lads are probably a bit ahead of him. But again, another fantastic player for Limerick this year. And just thinking about it, like looking through all these players, it's so hard to know when Limerick are going to be stopped, in all honesty. And yeah, Tom Morrissey gets in at 12. We move into the full forward line, and again, this is a pretty easy choice in my opinion at 13, and it is Aaron Gillane. Shane Kingston and Owen Cody would have been the two real contenders for me. Shane Kingston, brilliant. Actually, he scored a goal against Limerick in the Munster Championship, and was brilliant, obviously coming off the bench against Kilkenny, but was fairly quiet, I thought, in the final. Was marked very well out of the game and struggled to really make an impact in the game. And Owen Cody, fairly impressive for Kilkenny this year as well against Wexford, and done all right against Cork as well. But Aaron Gillane, you can't look past him. 1-6 against Cork in the final, 1-5 against Waterford, 6 against Tipperary when he came off the bench, and 6 against Cork. Now, he is the free taker as well, so I mean, majority of his points probably came from frees and place balls, but obviously the 2 goals, the one against Cork and the one against Waterford as well, 2 brilliant goals, very similar goals as well, it must be said, and brilliant in that right corner forward position and just making things happen. When the goal chances present themselves, he goes for it, he takes those opportunities. And looking at the impact he had when he came off the bench against Tipperary, like he's brilliant off the ball as well. Like when opposing defenders have the ball, like in the Cork game when it was Niall O'Leary or Sean O'Donoghue pushing out from cornerback, you'd see Aaron Gillane just pressing on the opposing defenders, winning the ball back, and a part of that Limerick swarm where they really just crowd up on top of you, and he was really sort of the main man at doing so. So yeah, Aaron Gillane gets in at 13 for me. And 14 for me was another very unanimous decision, and that was Patrick Horgan. And like what I said before, Austin Gleason, who was probably done his best work at 14, we've already put in the team. And there is another player that did play all of his season at 14 that does get in this team as well. That's Jamie Flanagan, but we'll get on to him in a moment. Yeah, Patrick Horgan in at 14. Don't think there can be any two doubts about it. 2 other players maybe that could have got a mention, TJ Reid of Kilkenny, and I actually think Ronan Hayes was decent for Dublin, but obviously Ronan Hayes was missing for that Leinster final, so you could never put him in the team, and he was nowhere close to getting past Patrick Horgan, let's be honest. Yeah, Patrick Horgan, I mean, what a year, what a player, and I'd be shocked if he doesn't get an All-Star. I know a lot of people are looking at Jack O'Connor as one of the top players for Cork, but in the Kilkenny game, Patrick Horgan was unbelievable for me. I mean, he was tremendous in that semi-final, picking up so much pockets of space in and around that full forward position, causing all sorts of havoc. I mean, Hugh Lawler has been a brilliant player for Kilkenny so far, or he was a brilliant player for Kilkenny this year, no doubt about it, but Patrick Horgan turned him inside and out time and time again. He was tremendous. In the final, he did struggle a little bit. The majority of his points were from place balls. Dan Morrissey won a lot of ball ahead of him, but I don't think you can look past Patrick Horgan. Like 12 points against Limerick in that final, 15 against Kilkenny, 12 against Dublin, 10 against Clare, and 5 against Limerick on the opening day. He did miss a penalty, which I'm sure, it's a funny, like if he had scored that, Cork would have went 5 points up at that moment in time, and who knows maybe how that game would have finished. But I just don't think you can look past Patrick Horgan. I think he was brilliant this year for Cork, and great to see that he's staying on as well, that he's not retiring, because he's definitely one of the most important players for Cork in the past couple of years, and certainly for years to come. And 15, like I said before, I put Jamie Flanagan in here. Now, there certainly were other options. I mean, a lot of people will probably, Cork fans will probably be screaming at your laptop or whoever's watching, or on your phone or whatever, saying that Jack O'Connor should probably get in here. And yeah, Jack O'Connor had a brilliant year for Cork. I mean, he was just unbelievable pace, probably the quickest player in hurling right now. Got that brilliant goal against Kilkenny in extra time, brilliant against Dublin, brilliant against Clare as well. Just such a hard player. When he got on the ball, he was such a hard player to dispossess, because he'd just be driving and he'd be running and weaving at you from all sorts of different angles. But when you really look back and look at the longevity of the championship, like Jack O'Connor was really quiet for the opening 60 minutes against Kilkenny. Didn't really come to life really until extra time when he got that goal. And it was really Shane Kingston who came on and started to create a bit more space for Jack O'Connor late on in that game. Very quiet in the final, didn't really have much of an impact at all. So, when you look at it, Patrick Horgan, gets in at 14, there's no doubt about it. He's been the best player for Cork, in my opinion, this year. Peter Casey would have been another mention of Limerick. He was very impressive for Limerick this year, but I just don't think you can look past Jamie Flanagan. He had to get in this team, whether it was at 15, 13, or even putting him in the half forward line. Like he needs to get into this team, because he's been unbelievable for Limerick, there's no doubt about it. A point against Cork, 4 against Waterford, 1-3 against Tip, and 2 points against Cork the opening day. But But again, he was the poacher in many ways. Like, he was the man in the right position at the right time. Against Tipperary, for example, when Aaron Gillan ran through and forced a save at Barry Hogan, who was there to turn it into the back of the net? Shamey Flanagan. Just usually in the right position at the right time, and just a key part of this Limerick success this year, no doubt about it. So yeah, he gets in a 15 for me. And like what I said before, maybe you could have went with Jack O'Connor, but then you're leaving Shamey Flanagan out, which I think would have been really harsh. So that's my team anyway. That's Shamey Flanagan in at 15, and that completes the GAA Fan TV All Star Hurling Team of the Year. But anyway, lads, if you did enjoy this video, do leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. There will be an All-Ireland Senior Hurling Championship review podcast. We'll be grading every county from A to F. It will be myself and Matthew Hurley from the GAA Statsman podcast, who you would have probably seen on this channel a couple of times before. We'll be grading every county from A to F, from the All-Ireland Championship to Joe McDonough and downwards. So do stay tuned for that. That should be out in a couple of days' time. And do leave a like, subscribe if you enjoyed the content, and I'll see you later.